What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and today it is time for part number 3 in my top 10 NFL players by position series. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing the wide receivers. And if you have not watched parts 1 and 2, in terms of my criteria with these lists, I'm not solely going off their stats from this past season. I'm also looking at their careers as a whole, injury history, whether or not they have progressed or regressed in recent years, and if I were building a team, ultimately, would I want these guys starting for me? With all that being said, let's get it started. Coming in at number 10, we have Tyler Lockett, and no, I did not put him on this list because his first name is Tyler. He's just that good. He has blossomed into a star in his 5th season in the NFL. In his first season as the Seahawks' number 1 option following the retirement of Doug Baldwin, Lockett saw career highs in both catches and yards with 82 and 1,057 respectively, good enough for 20th and 22nd in those categories amongst all pass catchers in the NFL. Lockett is a real burner. He is a guy that can get past most defenders with his speed, which allows Russell Wilson to find him over the top for big plays. He and DK Metcalf are going to make a great pairing for years to come. My one issue with Lockett is that he'll have games of 75 plus yards and then others where he struggles to get over 50. In 9 games this season, Lockett had 51 or fewer yards, 6 where he had 75 or more. That is ultimately why I can't put him higher on this list. I want him to be able to produce more at a consistent basis. Granted, you have to take what the defense gives you as a quarterback finding your top wide receivers, but if Lockett is going to be the number 1 guy in Seattle, he needs to get the number 1 wide receiver opportunities, in my opinion. So Tyler Lockett, number 10 on my list as of right now. Coming in at number 9, we have Chris Godwin. Toward the end of the 2018 season, Godwin showed signs that he could be an elite wideout in the NFL, and in 2019, he lived up to it and probably even exceeded the hype. Godwin went for career highs in every major receiving statistical category with 89 catches, 1,333 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Those 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns were good enough for 3rd and tied for 4th amongst all pass catchers in the entire NFL this past season. The Buccaneers' offense is not great, and there will probably be a change at quarterback in 2020. But with Godwin and Mike Evans roaming the outside for Tampa, you would think they would cancel each other out, but that is certainly not the case with this duo. In 14 games this season, Godwin surpassed the 100-yard receiving mark 6 times and had 0 games with fewer than 40 receiving yards, so he's uber consistent. The thing for Godwin is that I want to see if this level of production can continue, regardless of who is at quarterback for years to come. Because, as I mentioned, there's probably going to be a change at quarterback next season in Tampa Bay. If it's a better quarterback than Jameis Winston or worse, I want to see if Godwin can still put up really good numbers, barring anything crazy like an injury or what have you. But as of right now, Chris Godwin, number 9 on my list. At number 8, we have Keenan Allen. Although the Chargers did not have their best season as a team, Allen once again thrived. Allen has shaken off any injury-prone history or label or stigma that he might have received early on in his career, as in the last 3 seasons, he has played every single game, 16 games each of the past 3 years. This season, Allen went for career highs in catches with 104, tying for 3rd in the NFL, as well as had 1,199 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns, good enough for 6th and tied for 24th, respectively. Allen is one of the older guys on this list at 27, but still constantly puts up solid numbers. The Chargers' passing game is certainly not what it once was when they had Vincent Jackson and Antonio Gates running out, and Phillip Rivers' best days are behind him, but Allen still continues to put up really, really good numbers. And he only has 1 more year on his current contract, so it will be interesting to see as to whether or not he'll decide with the team that drafted him in 2013. With Rivers getting up in age and the Chargers having a 2-headed monster in the backfield with Eckler and Melvin Gordon, Allen is going to, I think, continue to struggle in years coming down the road if he stays in LA, because Rivers is not going to be able to produce as much. We've seen it with guys like Eli Manning and Tom Brady somewhat. They're having difficulty finding their receivers downfield, and Eckler and Gordon will be relied upon heavily. So it'll be interesting to see if Allen's production drops in the near future. The reason why I can't have him higher, though, is because all the guys ahead of him are either younger or have a higher ceiling or just straight up better than Allen. So right now I have Keenan Allen comfortably at my number 8 wide receiver spot. At number 7, we have Mike Evans, the second member of this Tampa Bay duo at wide receiver, and they're probably only the real bright spots on this Tampa Bay roster, if you ask me. This is the first time in Evans' career where he did not play at least 15 games. Evans missed the last 3 full games of the year with a hamstring injury, which saw him being placed on IR. With the emergence of Godwin, as I mentioned earlier, Evans really did not see a dip in his production. In my opinion, they actually helped each other out, because if you double one, you're not going to be able to double the other, and that will give him the single coverage and allow for the big play to happen. Tampa Bay didn't take advantage of that very often, but that's Bruce Arians' offensive scheme and Jameis Winston as a quarterback, not on Evans or Godwin. Evans statistically this season had 67 catches, 1,157 yards and 8 touchdowns. Not his best, but solid numbers across the board. And once again, I mentioned 13 games. Evans is 26, has a lot of football left in him, one would think. It is now on the Bucs front office, though, to find a quarterback that best suits their star wide receiver, because Evans is by far the better receiver, in my opinion, out of him and Godwin. So it's really on the Bucs front office to find a quarterback that will allow his wide receivers to thrive. So Mike Evans at number 7 on my list. Coming in at number 6, we have Tyreek Hill. Hill missed 4.5 games this season due to a shoulder injury he suffered in Week 1 against Jacksonville. Because of this, he saw a dip in his stats with only 58 catches, 860 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Hill is probably the most electric wide receiver in the entire league. Defenders have such a difficult time with him. All it takes is one play, and he can wreck an entire opposing team's defense. I am not considering the injury history unlike other guys because it was a freak thing, and I don't think it will be a recurring issue. That being said, Hill is a smaller guy, so he might suffer with injuries down the road, and as a speedster, those legs are very, very important for him. One knee injury or one hamstring injury could totally alter Hill's career. But as of right now, the duo of Hill and Patrick Mahomes will give defenders and defensive coordinators nightmares for years to come because of what each of them can do on the field. Hill being so fast and electric, and Mahomes having an arm like no other. My one issue with Hill is the off-the-field stuff. He had the issue in the offseason involving child abuse and domestic violence. He was found innocent, but those things can't be taken lightly, and who knows if they will come back or what issues emerge from this. As a talent, though, Hill is one of the best in the league, but right now I have him at number 6 on my list. Number 5, we have Davante Adams. As someone who had Adams in fantasy football this season, I was not happy because Adams did not have his greatest years as he did in years past. But it's not necessarily anyone's fault. Adams missed 4 games this season with a turf toe injury, and when he did play, he really wasn't himself, and I think that's because the injury lingered on for a few more weeks than he would have liked. In the games he did play, Adams did go for 997 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns on 83 receptions. With Adams being the number 1 target in the Packers offense, who has, if you saw my top 10 quarterbacks video, the number 3 quarterback in the NFL, he's always going to be covered by the opposing team's best corner. With all that being said, you might be wondering why I have Adams so high. The reason is actually quite simple. Number 1, he has one of the top quarterbacks, at least of right now, in the NFL, so he's going to get his opportunities. Aaron Rodgers is getting older. We don't know what the future has for Davante Adams. But number 2, I think that Adams is one of the few guys at wide receiver who you could put on any team with virtually any quarterback, and he'll have success because as a talent, he is that good. Hopefully next season, Adams can avoid the injuries and get back to how he played in 2018 because the Packers offense, they looked really solid for most of the year when Adams didn't play. So add in the ability of Adams has, Aaron Jones at running back, Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. I really like the Packers' chances next year, barring health. But as of right now, Davante Adams, number 5. At number 4, we have Odell Beckham Jr. Year 1 in Cleveland probably didn't go as planned as a lot of people would have thought it would have for OBJ and the Browns as a whole. Beckham in his first 3 years in the league was phenomenal, breaking records left and right. Then he had the ankle injury in 2017 that held him to 4 games and had him seeing IR for the rest of the year. In Beckham's last season as a Giant, he played 12 games, going for 77 catches, 1,052 yards, and 6 touchdowns. This season, Beckham managed to go below that bar from 2018 while playing in 16 games and getting 9 more targets than the year prior. He consisted of a stat line of 74 catches, 1,035 yards, and 4 touchdowns. He played 4 more games, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 12, 16 minus 12. And had 9 more targets. And he's had worse numbers. Not good. Not great at all. The reason why I have OBJ this high, though, is because he's extremely talented and is arguably the most talented guy on this list. The issue is that there are just way too many distractions in Cleveland. If OBJ was not as good as he was, still top 10 caliber, but not this good, he would probably be much lower, maybe not even on the list because of the off-field stuff at times can get out of hand. The press conferences and the interviews that he does and some of the things he says can be really, really distracting to a team. And it doesn't help when you have Baker Mayfield who says not always the right thing at the right time, in my opinion. So if I were Odell, I would look at Antonio Brown. Look what happened to him with all the off-the-field stuff and where he is now. Odell should not want this to happen to him in his career. And as Odell gets older, and if his production doesn't improve and the distractions remain prevalent, he simply will not be on a roster a la Antonio Brown. And because there are always guys coming out of the draft who are better and don't have the off-the-field issues But as of right now, Odell Beckham Jr. as a talent, hoping that he turns it around for the sake of his career in the NFL, I have him at number 4. At number 3, we have Julio Jones. What can you say about Jones that hasn't already been said already? The guy is a beast. Although his numbers did dip in 2019 from where they were in 2018, Jones did have a really good year in his age 30 season. Man, it's weird seeing that Jones is 30 years old, given I remember watching him get drafted in 2011. Jones had 99 catches for 1,394 yards and 6 touchdowns, good enough for 6th, 2nd, and tied for 24th amongst all NFL pass catchers. In recent years, the touchdowns has been an issue for Jones, and he has always been able to rack up the yards, but has difficulty getting into the end zone. I don't necessarily blame Jones for that, though. I think that is a product of the offensive play calling and Jones being shadowed by the best of the best at cornerback position every single week. If I were building a wide receiver in a lab, Julio Jones would be the guy because he is a perfect blend of size, speed, and strength. In my opinion, Jones is the best wide receiver when it comes to getting yards after the catch, consistently breaking out into the open field for big plays. The reason why I can't have him higher, though, is because number 2 and number 1 are younger, and I was starting a team, I would rather have those guys because of the future they have. But Julio Jones, probably my favorite wide receiver in the entire NFL. I have him at number 3 on my list. Coming in at number 2, we have DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins certainly did not have his best season of his career, but still had a really good one. Hopkins was tied for 3rd in catches with 104, 11th in receiving yards with 1,165, and 16th in receiving touchdowns with 7. Hopkins has been uber reliable since coming into the league back in 2013, playing in every single game but 2 his entire career. And he missed 1 this season, which was the last game of the year, as the Texans had already locked up their spot in the playoffs. So, realistically, he's missed 1 game in his entire career since 2013. Pretty good, I would say. At least in my opinion. I don't know about you. The guy in the number 1 spot was a lock for me when I started this list. And you've probably guessed who he is. But as for Hopkins at 2 and Jones at 3, ultimately what it came down to was, as I mentioned with Jones, Hopkins is a few years younger. Both guys are so good, I could have probably done a tie for 2nd between the 2 of them, but I feel like that would be a cop-out. But I compare Hopkins most to Randy Moss. Just throw the ball in his direction, and he will make a play on it. The only difference is that Hopkins is a little more soft-spoken than Moss, but Hopkins has a bright, bright future with him and Deshaun Watson for the next 5 or so years. I'm really excited to see what that tandem can do, and maybe even this postseason. If you saw my divisional round playoffs preview, I said that Houston will beat Kansas City. Hopefully that prediction comes true. We will see. But as of right now, DeAndre Hopkins, number 2 in the NFL at the wide receiver position in my opinion. Coming in at number 1, I mean, it's pretty obvious in my opinion. Michael Thomas. Can't guard Mike is his nickname, and that is true. You just cannot guard him. Since he entered the league in 2016, he has had 470 catches, over 5,500 yards, and 32 touchdowns. Just a phenomenal receiver. It helps when you're playing with Drew Brees at quarterback, but neither here nor there. As a talent, he is that good. And you probably figured that he would be number 1 on my list because Thomas just had one of the best seasons by an NFL wide receiver ever. Thomas went for an NFL single season record with 149 catches, breaking Marvin Harrison's record. Thomas had also the most receiving yards in the NFL with 1,725 and was tied for the 4th most touchdowns amongst pass catchers with 9. If you saw my wildcard weekend preview, I spoke about how good Thomas was compared to the other wide receivers on his team. Among wide receivers on the Saints roster, Thomas has more touchdowns, 9-7, more catches, 149-56, and more receiving yards, 1,725 to 692. That was in the regular season. Thomas, he's better than any other wide receiver combined on his team. He's just phenomenal. If I were starting a team with Thomas, he would be my first choice at wide receiver. I just love him as a talent, and I think the Saints have a gem. They should not let him go anywhere. Give him whatever he wants. I believe he did actually sign a contract extension, so he's locked up in New Orleans. He and Drew Brees and Alvin Kamara are going to make a great tandem for at least the final years of Brees' career. And then whoever the Saints decide to bring in a quarterback, I still think Thomas will thrive because he is that good. So number 1 wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, Michael Thomas, right here. Can't guard Mike. So what do y'all think? Do you think I got it right? Do you like my top 10 list? Who would you have put on? Who would you have taken off? I know it's really hard. There's some really good wide receivers in the NFL. I know I left off like Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Julian Edelman. There is an argument there. Juju Smith-Schuster. The list goes on and on. I could have probably done 20 or 30 the top 20 or top 30 wide receivers in the NFL, but that would have taken a really, really long time. but I think that I like my top 10. Tell me what yours is. Leave it down in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.